one part of the pillar of growth is retention. If your retention is shit, you're just filling a leaky bucket. You're just losing people as much as you're getting more at the top.
Snackable content from brand builders,
e-commerce and growth marketing leaders,
giving you actionable insights you can apply today.
Bite-sized podcast
with Daniel James.
What's up, Yoann? Welcome to Bite-sized.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
Of course. I'm super excited to have you on. We were just saying before we started, I follow you on Twitter and now Threads and LinkedIn and kind of been following your journey, but also the content you put out about marketing and everything else in your current role as CMO of Nude for a while. But for anyone who doesn't know you, why don't we kick off by just tell me your kind of 3-5 minute career story, where it started and what you're currently doing now.
Yeah, I'll try to make it short. So I moved to London. So I'm in London right now, North London. Moved to London about 12 years ago. I'm French. So I grew up in south of France. A very nice place by the sea, close to Spain, between the mountains and the sea. But I guess that's what attracted me to go to a city, because I grew up in like rural south of France, and I was really into like just cultural shit when I was growing up. Really into basketball, hip hop, like American culture, a lot of that between like films, MTV and all that stuff. And as soon as I had the opportunity to go, I went, and I ended up not too far away from France, but in the UK. And I guess the big thing about my career is I changed careers in my mid-20s, about 25, 26-year-old. I studied engineering, so I was doing very more like traditional. I found very boring, but some people really like it, and it's fine. In like more traditional industries like automotive and space to begin with. So I was wearing suit and tie and things like that. And when I was I guess 4 years in this career, I saw an opportunity to join a Facebook marketing agency in 2013, which was the fairly early days of Facebook ads back then, and decided to do a big career switch, go back to the beginning to this Facebook agency called Glow. At the time, they had like a tiny office in Covent Garden, like 10 people, and we're getting these like crazy clients directly from Facebook, because at the time, if you had a software plugged into the Facebook API and what was called at the time Power Editor, before Ads Manager, you would get all these clients from Facebook. So like we were working with like the biggest gaming client before the big ones that we know now, like, you know, the Candy Crush of the world and like those like kind of companies. Even before that, working with like Spotify, some betting clients as well, or like things like that, like some big ecomm too. And that's how I started. I got the bug like that. Switch career, decided to like spend some money on Facebook and learn by doing, because still to this day you can't really learn that stuff at school. Like there's not like or maybe there is now, but like a curriculum to become a proficient digital marketer. And so I was doing, and I loved it. And I guess it solved kind of engineer part of my brain with the data. And like I felt like for me, it was a game. I love looking at the numbers and like, optimizing shit. At the same time, I love the creative side. I was like, that fulfilled that part that was missing in my previous career. And from that on, managed to move into some pretty successful companies, UK startups that became actually two of the biggest exited unicorn in the UK. There's not that many that exit as a unicorn, so it's worth mentioning. The first one was Deliveroo, so food delivery at the peak of what food delivery was, just becoming a part of people's lifestyle, because it wasn't a few years ago. Like you wouldn't order food from restaurants like 3 times a week or more. And the second one was Depop, so fashion marketplace. Both time marketplaces, both time apps. So I kind of became like an app guy as opposed to ecomm and more like DTC. But that's how I kind of like got some of my recognition working for these companies fairly early on. And now I'm at Nude. So Nude, another app, but this time in fintech. And we know London is one of the fintech hub of the world. So a big opportunity there too. And yeah, that's me.
That's amazing, man. From the south of France to London to running digital marketing for these unicorn companies. So now at Nude, you're CMO, right? What is the role of a CMO?
A good question. So Nude is still definitely a startup, still early stage, small teams. So I guess the role of a CMO in that case is very different from a big corporate, company where you have to do a lot more management and team management. For me, it still means that I am responsible of, the brand, marketing, content, and then, I guess acquisition as well, like all the growth side of things, even though that's partly shared with product and more like a, cross-functional effort. This still remains, but the difference is that I still need to understand how to do the things and not just understand, also do those things. So there's still, especially on what is originally my core skill set, the paid acquisition side of things. There's still a lot of that I can do myself that I still to this day enjoy doing myself too, like staying in touch with, finding the arbitrage in between channels and the new tactics and things like that. Like I would say I became passionate of that over the years. So my role is, I would say, a mix between what would be a CMO role in a bigger company and maybe more what head of growth role would be in a smaller company. So yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
And that's kind of where the question comes from a little bit. It's like CMO versus growth, and is a good CMO these days actually ahead of growth? It kind of leads me into my, the next thing I wanted to ask you on is, I come from a world of brand and performance marketing, where brand is one thing, performance marketing is another. And I think like I always really struggled with why those things were so separate, because they shouldn't be. In my opinion, they shouldn't be. If brand is separate from marketing, performance marketing, excuse me. At the end of the day, why do companies do brand marketing? It's to make more people aware of their products or services. Why do you do performance marketing? To convert more people into customers. Those two things should not be separated. So like, what's your kind of philosophy around that? What's your approach? How, as CMO of Nude, right? I'm sure there's brand initiatives, performance initiatives from in terms of like how you think about them. But in your opinion, how do you combine the two? Should they be combined? What's your philosophy?
I'm like 1,000% with you on that. Like, one of the reason for, at least from an external standpoint, wanted to have that badge, that CMO badge, is because I always felt from very early on in my career, like from the Deliveroo days, so almost 10 years ago, that there was a big silo problem between all these teams in marketing. And the only way I could solve that problem is that eventually, if I'm in charge of everything, I'll be able to like do that mix correctly. And it was really hard to get that across to, I would say, maybe more traditional marketers or senior marketers that came from the wave before digital or during digital, but maybe they were always on the brand side. So they never really cared about how to launch a Facebook campaign or whatever it is. Like think about any channel. It doesn't have to be social, search, whatever. And the only way I could find a way to reconcile the two, and trust me, I tried in previous role to reconcile the two. I was never senior enough. I was shut down, good idea, Yoann, but, we're going to keep our brand team of 30 people doing their thing, and your team of digital marketers are going to do their thing. And it's, we're going to let you figure this out between those two teams. It was a mess. It's a mess because different KPIs or OKRs and no alignment from the top down, from the CMOs of the time or the CEO, even really hard to do from when you come from a slightly lower rank, like a head of type rank. You can try, I guess it's still on a case by case. For me, in the places I was, it was impossible to do, even though I was trying. So that answers your question. Like for me, it's part of the same thing. The debate about, should you have a chief growth officer or CMO or should you have a head of for all of that? I don't think the title piece for me doesn't really matter. Like you can call yourself whatever. Like I don't really care about being called a CMO, head of growth or whatever, as long as that means that my title is going to allow me to do that thing where we can take brand, the content that comes from brand, the distribution of the content that comes from brand, and plug it with the performance side, the revenue part, or the app side of things, or whatever your objective is as a business. And I'm saying whatever the title, in reality, you do kind of have to have the CMO title to be able to do that, to justify that it's your role to do that thing. If you're called head of growth or chief growth officer, they'll probably park you on the, you're just going to do acquisition, retention, monetization, which are like the, kind of three things of growth. But the brand, we're going to have a creative director for that. And then that's why you're fucked again, because that becomes split as you grow. I think it's also partly because, 15 years ago, there was nothing, none of that. All that is new. So we're still in a big transition phase. And also there was a massive bull run phase up until last year of like, unlimited cash. You can raise your next round as, not easily, but fairly easily if your numbers are good. So let's hire, managers on top of managers on top of managers. We can have the luxury of all the teams we want. And, I think that was also, that didn't help in retrospect.
I totally agree with everything you just said. I love everything you just said. It's so refreshing to hear. And I hope there's more CMOs who in the future take that approach. For me as well, it's also like I know why things were that way, but it's like we shouldn't accept that just because they were, that's how it should be. And, from being an agency owner operator and having worked at previous agencies, it's like you would sell companies on, well, we have brand capabilities and so everybody is basically siloing things for the wrong incentive, right? Which is protect my budget. If I'm a brand person, protect me being held accountable to anything to do with performance. Then it becomes challenging, right? It's like most brands can't afford to just do fluffy brand stuff without understanding if it's actually generating some future intent of customers. Some brands can. For me, I just think it's like a lazy place to get to where it's like, well, we're just going to keep things super separate. I think I see it, right? I see more and more the convergence of that, because from a brand perspective, it's more efficient and effective from a vendor management and a marketing ROI perspective. And then I think whether you're doing that internally or whether you're doing it with an agency, good agencies are then also able to understand how to make those two things work together.
Totally agree. And the fact that now we are in a tighter economy, in a situation where it's really hard to raise your next round, I think it kind of forces that to happen. It's like there's no BS anymore. You got tighter budget. You can still do, some more like brand activations, but they do have to fit within that budget. It's not a separate budget anymore. And you need to look at your blended CAC, or, your payback period becomes, you need to become religious about it. Where a few years ago, well, not too too long ago, you could justify a payback period of 24 months to investors, and they were still like, that's good. Yeah, 24 months, so good. That's cool. Now you go above 6 months, and they're like, you pretty much have to be bootstrapped now. Almost, profitable on the first purchase. That's the kind of like the situation we're in. So it forces those teams to merge. It forces KPIs to be combined, and I think you'll make some marketers stand out by understanding. Often the misunderstanding is the performance side, because that's the hardest part to understand. The branding top of funnel part, which is often engagement led, is easier to understand, is creative led. So as long as you still have some creativity within your team or your agency, that will still happen. The difference is, the size of the budget for that brand activity will be smaller. But I guess, that's a good thing.
So you led digital in different capacities, but Deliveroo, Depop, and now Nude. What's your approach to when you join a new company, right? So what's your approach of like understanding the business, the challenges, and then how you start developing a strategy? I've always thought like the word strategy is like, it can become, what is it? It's like a bunch.
Yeah.
It's even, I think the perception is like it's a bunch of fluff. It's like a nice deck that then you forget. But actually, being an ex-strategist, and now from an agency perspective, like so much is around that initial growth strategy. It's so important. What's your approach? What do you do? What have you done when first joining those companies that allowed you to go on and then be successful?
Yes, that's the part I love, really, because that's where I specialize, I guess, now, because that's the third time I'm doing this. Both, actually, now at Nude is the same. At Deliveroo, Depop, and Nude, I was the first brought in growth marketer, just broadly call it growth marketer. So I had to figure it out. The first thing I do, and maybe it was less clear when I was at the Deliveroo because I was, a year and a half after my first agency. I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I was just spending money on Facebook. But I guess still, what happens all the time is I spend the first few days, it doesn't take really long, understanding the business numbers. Very important. I think that's a big part of being the CMO as well now, or, any growth kind of marketer is like really understanding the business side of it, because also you'll make your financial director or CFO very happy if you understand that you can talk numbers with him or her. So really understanding the unit economics, if they already have a notion of like lifetime value or, purchase pattern with the customers, like really understanding that, putting in place your, how much can I spend? Like, what's the limit? What's my threshold in terms of like results, ROAS or cost of install, whatever the business you're in. And then very quickly, I try a bunch of channels. And in each cases, I'm doing that myself. Like, at that time, you don't bring an agency, or to be honest with you, in two times, the agency was already there. So what I did was getting rid of the agency and then doing it myself. Unfortunately, there's a lot of agencies that don't do a great job. They take the check from companies and they kind of say they're doing a good job, and then it's not always the case. So for me, it was like that. So I was looking at what was existing. It was very, very small budget at the time, but I had the numbers on paper now. How much should be what should be the KPI, and then whatever the channels were like popping at the time, I would start there. So like Deliveroo was Facebook and then Instagram. Depop was Snapchat, weirdly. And Snapchat I didn't just try Snapchat, but Snapchat very quickly came out at the top, like the lowest results and the biggest opportunity, because no one was doing ads on Snapchat in 2018 the way maybe they do now. But I don't even think it's saturated now, because Snapchat is not the number one thing you hear from advertisers. And then Nude is TikTok, but really very quickly testing a bunch of creatives to get a benchmark of what are the results we can get. And that literally I do that within before the end of month one is done. Like I know roughly how much we can acquire a customer from. I can benchmark that with the lifetime value or any sort of like data that I got from the existing cohorts of users, or for the past few years or few months, depending on how much data you've got. And then it's budget allocation. So you go next phase, it's how much can we allocate to digital, assuming nothing was really allocated before or very minimal amount, and then scale as fast as you can. At the time, it was still possible. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
To scale fast. Now it's maybe more cautious, but yeah.
So you quickly identified the core channels. So you kind of said Deliveroo was Facebook and Instagram, Depop was Snapchat, and Nude is TikTok. So if you're spending on other channels, like a big thing, like, I think brands question is when to diversify. Like, what's my channel mix? So for you in those early stages, like, well, Snapchat, let's just say, like, actually, let's take Nude. TikTok is working for Nude. So what does your channel mix look like? Do you just go all in on TikTok and like cut off spend to others until you start to see some diminishing returns? Or is there still, I kind of know that it's dependent on how much you're spending and how much can you channel diversify, but what's your approach to channel diversification?
I try and find two. And I think I was not as clear in my head a few years ago or not, and maybe try to diversify outside of two channels maybe too quickly. Because when you're winning on one or two channels, then you think you can win on every channel, and you're like, here we go, like we're gonna go everywhere. But really, and that's the big difference with Nude, is the other obvious is Instagram. I mean, that's Facebook, Instagram is still there. So if you can make two channels, at least on the paid acquisition side of things, work, you don't need more. Like literally until you get to, I don't know, a Series C, you don't need to go much more than that. Like there's so many people on this platform to scale. You shouldn't really have to do much more, at least on the digital side of things. It wouldn't even be comparable. You still do some tests, like I do testing all the time on other, but like it's less than 5%. But of the budget is really tiny stuff, really tactical things, just to see how things move and stuff. But really, two channels to scale is all you need. And then outside of that, outside of like the more like paid acquisition side of things, I try to set aside a part of the budget. And I don't want to put a percentage because it really changes, it really depends on month or quarter, but like, that 20-30% brand budget is on top of these two kind of acquisition channel. And it could be spent on TikTok too, but the objective is different. Is the money is used on boosting some of the content, improving the engagement rate on some of the content that we put down on YouTube. Could be other things, but really two channels for acquisition is all you need for a very long time.
What's really interesting around that is, and I don't know your experience with some of the, when companies get bigger. This is a while ago. I'm old in this game. It's like social used to be called walled gardens, right? And it was like your core digital plan was built on owned and operated properties, digital advertising on websites, and then social was like, oh well, we'll also carve off 10% of our budget and put it into the walled gardens, named that way because traditionally you wouldn't get all the data back, right? And it's like, it's really interesting how these days it's like probably a lot of legacy brands don't think this way, but for any brand up to probably, I don't know, 50 million, maybe 100 million, their first ad dollar is going into social, right? And it didn't used to be that way. Like 10 years ago, maybe even slightly less than that. It didn't used to be that way. And I kind of like I like what you said there. It's like, you don't need more than 2 channels but be testing. And if it proves out to be that way, I think people become too, and maybe it's because they're not seeing the results on the channel. So I understand that, but to try and diversify budgets too soon, too quickly, or fragment your budgets across multiple platforms doesn't typically lead to greater success.
Totally. In the first, when you ask me like what doing at the beginning, the first month or couple of months, we will test more than 2 to find those 2. But once you get a sense of the 2, and the 2 channels are for most people will be the same. Like there's not like any scientific, TikTok is probably one and Instagram is probably the second. Maybe the second one might change depending on what you do, but there's not going to be a massive surprise. I guess in add another 5 or 10 years, if the biggest advertisers spend more and more of their budget on digital first and really saturate, because I think there was the top 25 advertisers in the world, like number 1 is Amazon, right? They spend 25 billion a year on advertising, which is insane. Only them could saturate all the channels for everyone else. Like they spend so much money. So maybe we'll see a resurgence on, I don't know, like other things like direct mail or whatever, billboards. Like there's a lot more flexibility in like media buying on more like what used to be more traditional things. Maybe those things will become the opportunity again. I don't know. We'll see. But that's the game. That's why we do what we do, right? That's just finding out those things.
Yeah, that is the game. What's your philosophy to building teams? Are you a big brand in-house, only hire in-house teams? Are you an agency fan? Are you a hybrid of both? And at what point does agency make sense versus in-house? Like what's your philosophy, and also what has worked?
So that changed over the years. I think because work in general has changed over the last few years with COVID and everything. But in the past, I used to be really pro in-house and hiring channel experts. When I was building the team that I built at Deliveroo, my team at Depop were very in-house focused. In the end, it was hybrid. There was agency involved too, but there was kind of a strong focus on hiring. And maybe because the incentive at the time, because the economy was different, because I was building my career, I was incentivized to build my team because I was building my career, right? So people do what they're being incentivized for. So if the incentive for me to progress in my career is at the next interview, how many people did you manage? I need to fucking hire people before, because otherwise I'm never going to get the next level, right? And that's how I got to the next level to some extent. When I joined Depop, they asked me, how many people did you manage before? So maybe that was also like, obviously that was influenced by that. Now I'm leaning a lot more towards lone wolves. So not necessarily ad agencies, but like creators, freelancers, agency, as well as in-house. But we're still a small, like I said, a super small company. So my team internally is like the 3 of us, including me. So a super small team. But I work with a ton of other people outside, and they come and go. Super small contracts, one day there. Even on the creative side. So creative meaning designers, meaning content creators, meaning influencers, some agencies on the paid management as well when we need to scale. So yeah, my view has changed. And I think what helped that change, and like I said, is since COVID, remote working, but also the massive boom in the creator economy, the new generation is like, it's a different beast. Like I've seen the transition the last 5 years. It never used to be that way. I would have never done that when I was in my early 20s, but I'll get like 20 years old DMing me on LinkedIn or Instagram, direct message. Hey, I'm doing this. I've got this TikTok account. Are you looking to work with somebody? Like, can I, do you have a job? Like that was not the case before, right? Before it was like I was looking on the website. Is there a job opening? Oh, I'm going to have to do a cover letter. Okay, I need to like do a cover letter. Is my CV updated? I'm going to send a CV code. Like that's gone now. So I think that helped get the way I'm thinking now. Last year, we worked with 2 creators that was managing our TikTok account, literally doing 1 video every day, 7 days a week, 30 days a month. I found them through a WhatsApp social media manager group. They were 19 and 20. They were a digital agency, but it was like 2 of them. They're not really an agency. They're just, they're freelancers, right? But it was awesome. Literally, like everything was done through WhatsApp and a couple of emails, quick invoice. But like, this is your brief. You do a video every day on TikTok. This is what we do. Go. That's it.
Maybe that's the agency of the future. It just WhatsApp groups, no calls, no meetings, no reporting. Just here you go.
Exactly, and it was all done through like a mix of Google Drive, Airtable, WhatsApp, and yeah, I think that's also part of like whatever you call it, like a senior marketer at a company, the startup needs to be now. You need to be ultra flexible with that stuff. If you're still thinking in the way that I mentioned before, that you're gonna talk to HR and set up a job opening on your website, then put your job opening on LinkedIn, wait for 50 people to apply, go through the CVs, filter the ones who didn't do cover letter. Like if you're doing that, you're already lost. Like you lost the game. That's it. It's too late.
I agree. I think that's a great answer that would be really helpful for most people. It's like, well, first and foremost, it depends on the incentive, like what you're incentivized towards. And then I think like ever more, there's that flexibility of modeling, right? If your incentive is grow a team, do this in-house, versus like, I think the need now is to be a bit more scrappy. And also like there's less barriers to working with and testing different people, especially in like the creator economy and when it comes to content and creative and all this sort of stuff. So that's a really insightful answer. What's you mentioned it earlier, the app guy. It's different to e-commerce, which a lot of people who listen to this and stuff, and we, it's probably e-commerce focused, but we definitely have quite a few. I've had feedback around people who like work from a more lead generation app install and everything else basis, and we do quite a bit of work in that realm as well. It's vastly different. What's the core challenge of lead generation app based business versus something that's more of an e-commerce or traditional transactional business from a marketing perspective?
I think I'm jealous of the DTC guys, the DTC land, because attribution is a mess, man. Since iOS 14.5 or whatever, like 2 years ago, everything went. I think that's part of like being scrappy today, because you can't do what you used to do, which is go through installing your mobile measurement partner. There's literally 3 in a world, Adjust, App Flyer, and Branch. It used to be Coachella. I don't know if they exist, maybe 4. So that's the world of an app marketer. You've got a measurement partner. Before iOS 14, you were able to track down to the ad level. That was great. And that's kind of what you guys still do, right? You can still get a sense of ROAS on a pretty granular level. It's not as good as it used to be, but you're closer to the truth still. For us, that is completely gone. All you can see at a channel level, super high level. So obviously you can see data on the campaign ad sets and ad level on the channels, or in Ads Manager, for example, but it's never going to be accurate. The discrepancies are pretty big. And I don't even spend a second trying to understand those discrepancies. I just use that data as a trend. So the lag is huge as well. Like, do you know when you launch an app campaign on Facebook, between the time you launch it and it goes live and the time you get the closest to the truth that you can get, it can take 4 days. Like in 4 days, you're like literally shitting your pants because you had no idea if it's working or not. You're spending money, you're like, I don't know. It's getting better every day, but you don't know how low it's gonna go. So like, it might stop today. I don't know. Maybe it's crap. Maybe it's gonna get better tomorrow. We'll see. Then when it's working, you can leave it live for quite some times, which is that becomes okay. But from attribution at a micro level, it's very proxy trend led, but the source of truth are still the app stores. So you get the channel data, which is accurate from Apple and Google Play Store, and you can do your macro that way. That is, I think, the biggest difference. That and some granularity on like creative testing as well, which I'm pretty jealous on the ecomm world, because in the app ecosystem, they cap the amount of campaigns you can run per app. So I think the equivalent of the Advantage Plus campaigns on Facebook, I think the maximum you can run on an app is 9 campaigns. It's not bad, but it's not unlimited either. Like you're pretty capped. And those are the best type of campaigns on the app. Then you can do more manual campaigns, but those don't perform as well. So it's tricky. Like it's a very different ecosystem, but still fun though.
And I think, all of that on top of, and this might be different in your experience, it's often a free trial and then monetization. And it's like, then it's, generating the free trials is one thing, but then monetizing that free trial is another thing, right? What have you seen work really well? Because, I think that's a big challenge for us, even with the brands we're working with from an app install perspective. It's like, actually, all the challenges you just mentioned are the challenges you face for the install. Then the next thing is like, how do you get people to pay for it? What have you seen work well?
One of our strengths at Nude is we've done a lot of work on behavioral science. So our onboarding flow is pretty amazing. So we do a good job at, I should probably explain what we do at Nude. We have savings apps for first-time home buyers. So if you're saving for your deposit, the upfront money that you need to put towards, I don't know how you call it in the US, towards your house, the down payment. Is that you call it? That's how it's called in the US, right?
Yeah, and this whole escrow process, but yeah.
Yeah. So we help people in the UK raise that money as fast as possible through an app, through an account, where you get 25% of free government money on top of what you put. And in 2023, there's not much that pays 25% return. So that's a good thing to do. But so our onboarding flow is very different from your typical fintech app. We take an approach of time towards your goal as opposed to the money approach. We ask you where you want to live, how much you've got saved already. We ask you the postcode, and we show you on the map. We ask you what's the size of the house you want, how many bedrooms, and I think that creates a very strong emotional link to you thinking about you being in a house. Like it helps those little moments of steps in the onboarding gets you more and more motivated towards actually doing it. So we get like a pretty great conversion rate towards that. We did a lot of testing, obviously, on screens, and helped to like some screens have like the kind of like most popular choice type thing, like we tested a lot of that stuff to like guide people towards the better path towards becoming a customer, and that makes the marketing top of funnel work brilliantly. because when you get those two things working in parallel, if you go a very cheap top of funnel and your onboarding is kick-ass, you're getting a ton of customer data that then you can use. And that's the third thing that I think we're pretty great at is email marketing. The life cycle that kicks in as soon as you get that email address, the value added in our email is pretty insane. Like the way we educate you towards what it is to reach that goal and to get that house eventually. It might take you 5 years, but building that motivation and working on psychology almost, and kind of breaking down those objections that you might have in not saving today. I think what makes those three things, cheap top of funnel, great onboarding, and then great comms in emails, just converts very well. That's the trio. And then the thing with Nude, which is kind of special for us, is one part of the pillar of growth is retention. If your retention is shit, you're just filling a leaky bucket. You're just losing people as much as you're getting more at the top. Our retention, because it's a savings app, is like 80% after 2 years. Because once you start saving for a home, you don't stop until you actually reach that goal. So luckily, the marketing doesn't have to do too much towards helping retention. That's one part of the equation already solved. But I guess, what I mentioned before is the trio that works really well for us. Yeah.
Are you only ever going to be the app guy, or are you going to dip your toes into more traditional e-commerce?
I don't want to be the app guy. Let's not make it a thing. So yeah.
Okay, sorry. I apologize. We'll edit.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I really don't. I don't mind. I am agnostic. I don't care. Like as long what's exciting to me when I work somewhere is just the mission. Like, is it exciting? Is the product good? Is it solving like a deep kind of life problem or making it better in some ways? And so far, it happened to mostly be apps that I found through new technological shifts. So food delivery was brought because of smartphone, because of GPS, connecting the GPS with your location with other data points, unlocked the kind of last mile with food. And that was pretty insane. The kind of social secondhand plus social aspect of Depop and fashion with the whole secondhand circular economy movement that is growing, every day. That was the other thing. And then now it's, helping people to save for their first home, which is another noble cause,
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like, I say this a little bit. What is marketing, right? Marketing is understanding consumers and how to generate an action. Whether that's an app, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's it doesn't really matter, if I'm honest with you. Like, that's why, that you kind of answered it from your perspective, and from our perspective as an agency, it's like we work with a lot of fashion brands, we work with beauty brands, we work with some app install brands, we work with the question sometimes of like, well, if we haven't worked with a certain vertical, will you know what to do? It's kind of like, it's the same thing. If you're good at marketing, you can apply that across verse pretty seamlessly.
Exactly. There was something I heard in my podcast, or I might talk about later. One of the guests that we had on, which was so good. I'm going to try and make it justice. The way he explained marketing and growth was that you imagine yourself, you're a little speck, and all your job as a marketer is to create digital mass and over time get more and more gravity around you to attract more customers over time. And that speck grows. And it's like, I love this analogy with gravity and space, mainly because I love Interstellar, and the notion of space and time really excites me.
I literally just watched Interstellar for the first time the other night. My mind
first time.
I'm actually massively into all of that, like space, and my mind goes into these far off places. I actually met Neil deGrasse Tyson once. I was at one of Steve's Diary of a CEO podcast recordings. I've sat in on a couple, and Neil deGrasse Tyson was on one of them, and it just blew my mind. And we had like an hour after he finished the podcast where we were just talking about things and just his brain and his thinking. I was just like, holy fuck. But Interstellar blew my mind a little bit. I'll be honest with you.
I love that film. I watched it like 50 times. What were you doing?
I don't know. My problem is I'm really into space and all of that from a deep level. But in terms of watching movies, I have a really fucking bad attention span to things. Like, I'll put movies on, and like 10 minutes, I'm like, nah, my mind's going in this direction, or my mind's going in that direction. But great movie.
No, it is, and this analogy is like I love thinking about it as just creating digital mass on the internet. That's what your job is.
I love that too. I love that too. That's amazing. You recently launched a podcast. Why did you do that? What's the motivation? And how's it going?
So the main motivation is that I love talking about marketing. Genuinely, it became a passion by doing it, as I happened to be good at it, and became more and more attracted to it and stuff. So I felt like having something to dip my mind into that is not my day-to-day work would help fulfill my curiosity. And funny enough, I actually started it 2 years ago. I did 10 episodes, then I dropped because I felt like the work by myself as well. I was doing everything by myself. It was a bit too much. So 2 years happened, and then restarted last month. By the way, it's called In Growth We Trust. If you search for it. And I happened to meet one of my good friend Jake. Shout out Jake if you listen to this, who's one of the guys who actually taught me Facebook ads in my first job. So we stayed in touch, became very good friend, and we chatted about 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago. And I was like, I really want to restart that podcast because I want to talk to people, I want to invite guests, but also because we're marketers. I also want to test a bunch of tactics to grow it, and I just want to build the biggest marketing podcast in the world as fast as possible. And why not? And I was really surprised by his answer. I was like, do you want to do it with me? It'll be great if we together, because we can naturally split the work, and it was fun. And now there's a lot of AI stuff that we could use to help us do some of the work, the heavy lifting. And it was very happy to say yes. So we started a month ago, and it's a blast. I love it. It's like a little baby on the side, on top of my other kids. It's so good. It's so good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like running an agency. Like, don't get me wrong, I love it. But launching, I'd actually made a promise to myself for like a year, like launch a podcast. And sounds bad. I never got round to it because there's always something else more important. But actually, having launched it this year, I launched it in March, and it's by far the most enjoyable thing that I do. Just the ability. There's two things with it. One, to connect with like amazing people who otherwise is like, yeah, you can network and stuff, but to do it in a podcast form and actually make connection. I learn something every time I talk to someone, which I absolutely love. And it's like, I love hearing people's different perspectives and stuff. And it really doesn't feel like work. But then similar to you, and you're probably further along than this than me, but like building something from zero again, right? Like, how do I grow this? Like, I don't care from the perspective of, I'm not trying to make money out of it, but like, I look at my follower growth. Okay, how do I make it higher? Just for the pure gamification of how I look.
Yeah. That's your marketing brain kicks in again, and you're like, what's the next, the next level of speed? Can I go with this? How fast can it grow? It starts from a genuine, simple thought of meeting people, learning things that you can bring back to your agency. I can bring back to Nude. It's amazing. Like, it really opens a lot of like doors. Like, since we started it a month ago, it's only been 5 weeks. I met first of all, I met you to begin with. I met like 10 people on Twitter, which I never used for like 10 years. I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be more active on Twitter. And I'm meeting like incredible people. Some people I'm bringing in on the podcast. I'm learning a ton. I feel more connected than I almost ever been being in the arena. I'm in the game. Like, I know what's going on. Like, you feel like you have your finger in the pulse, like at any given week, because that's the thing with what we said before, is to win in this new context as a marketer with your whatever the business you work with. Like, you need to be in touch with what are the current arbitrage and channels and things, whether it's organic or paid, and I feel like having a medium like that really helps funnel those things to you, to the podcast, and that's awesome. And like you said, the potential money grab with having a big following, a big media, is a nice thought, but it's never the first thing. For me, the second thrill really is I'm really excited about the numbers. So I'm like, because with Jake, we're like two crazy scientists on a podcast, and like every day we have 20 ideas. Like it's insane, and I love that. I love that stuff. It's so interesting. Like we do it. We're testing paid ads on the podcast with our money, and like we spend like £5 a day, nothing, but like. I'm telling you, those £5, they deliver like crazy. Like you should check our ads on the Facebook library. Like our click-through rate is 10%. We pay like 5p a click that goes straight into Apple Podcast. But like that kind of shit, like I love it. It's so good. It's like you get to train your marketing muscle again on like these tactical things. And I love that stuff. So good. So good.
100%. And it's nice to do it for the fun, right? When there's nothing really at stake, right? Other than the money you in time you potentially invest. So no, I haven't tested ads yet. I might have to do a competitor analysis on your ads and see what you're up to.
No, I mean that's why I'm mentioning it, because I know if you're a good marketer, you can check those ads library. So there's no point hiding it. And you should definitely come on our podcast as well.
I'd love to, man. No, definitely. Let's do it. I'd love to be on the other side of the table and answering the questions for sure. Awesome, dude. Let's to wrap it up then, and thank you again so much for your time. I've been really excited to chat with you, and like you said, it's proof point of everything we just spoke about, right? Like podcasts and marketing and connecting with great people. I guess let's wrap it up in terms of what you're most excited about for you or for Nude, or what you're most excited about.
So yeah, definitely those two things. Really excited about Nude, because I think out of all the companies I work with, Nude has like the best metrics I've seen in years. The only issue is that we're in the worst economy that we've seen in years as well. So that kind of balances out. But I'm really excited about the prospect of growing Nude to hopefully my third unicorn. You get it on record. So if it happens, it'll be insane. You know what they say, like the first time is luck, second time is coincidence, third time is talent. So hopefully I get to the talent level. And then the other thing is, I would say like the podcast is really exciting. It's new. If you listen to this, you want to check it out. I'm also doing a daily tweet about the stats of the podcast, so on Twitter. So that's kind of fun. And those two things, I think, that was two good projects.
Awesome, man. Definitely. Well, I'm gonna make sure I link out to your Twitter, your LinkedIn, and Nude as well within the podcast. So if anyone listening wants to follow along on the podcast, or also you put out great content on LinkedIn as well, I'll definitely link it. But Yoann, appreciate you, my friend.
Cheers.
We'll chat again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Daniel.
Awesome. Thank you, mate.
Take care.